We're on 50.
You want to give an overview of your ordinance? Can you hear me?
What ordinance we're on?
Which one is she?
Community development. CPO 2020-53.
50.
I believe it's 52.
52? Yeah. It's two. Let me just throw these away. I'll just use the ones we got today. 56. 52, right?
Madam Chair,
It's 50.
just want to talk with the text for a minute. Are we live, getting calls that we can't hear on social media? Well, we are live, but no sound.
Is this right?
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live. We're not getting any sound. Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Okay, so the first ordinance on the agenda that we're going to take is CPO 2020-53, which is an ordinance appropriating monies for the purpose of recurring expenses. No, that's not it.
52.
52, I'm sorry. Approving salary and operating budget for the City of Gary Community Development Block Grant Program. So we're ready.
Yes, ma'am. And basically, this ordinance was presented to approve, as you just said, Madam Chair, the 2020 operating, budget, salary and operating budget for community, development. And as you can see from, the budget, via the HUD, funded grant, we fund a litany of agencies via, CDBG, which is a Community Development Block Grant, the Emergency Solution Grant, and our Home Grant. And so as you can see, the budget is rather, lengthy. Do you all have the
No,
entire?
ma'am.
I think we're looking at the wrong thing, or it's yeah.
it's 52, but it's two pages.
It's a big ordinance.
Yeah, it's several,
I don't,
Can you
the
give us a
budget is
second?
several pages.
52
Can you give us a second?
Yes, ma'am.
with a $20,000,
It's the wrong fund. This is the department is wrong. I think our packets are wrong.
this is Hudson and Campbell. And
Yeah, this is, what's attached to that particular ordinance is,
I
the,
didn't distribute it.
I know.
From the clerk's office.
I'm just telling you, it's wrong. We just need a
Okay,
second.
all right. You have the.
Yes, ma'am. Secretary, would you like to?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
What is the department number for that, department?
There are several departments under the town development.
Okay,
So it's the fund number is 261,
okay,
for community development.
okay, I got mine in the book.
Oh, okay.
So 261?
Also, I think 212 for home.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And 213 maybe for ESG.
Yes.
All right, I'll try to follow.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's lengthy.
That's weird. So our other packets might be incorrect.
Who put it in here?
So if you want to wait for your copy, we just give you an overview, what being funded. Do you have your program listing with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just kind of give the council an overview of what we're going to be funding for the 2020.
So for 2020, community development will be funding the following activities. First and foremost, the Hudson Campbell improvements. As you all might have noticed, the Hudson Campbell was improved on the inside, and currently they're finishing up the painting on the outside. That project was funded via community development through the Community Development Block Grant from HUD. We'll also be funding neighborhood facility improvements. And these are community block grant funds that can be utilized for improvements at various community centers such as Holliston, Roosevelt, Glen Ryan, and it will include roofing, interior repairs, and HVAC if needed.
Yeah, every mission.
We fund the Gary Commission for Women, the Rainbow Art Shelter, the Gary Health Department with sexually transmitted diseases, also the lead poisoning prevention through the Gary Health Department. We fund the Gary Human Relations, Fair Housing and Employment Rights Counseling Services, public education, and outreach. We also fund the Youth Services Bureau. We also provide a one-stop housing shop that assists homeowners and existing homeowners with services relating to home ownership loan products. We're funding a new project via CR Works. It's called Gary Bikes. These funds will be used to provide low to moderate income for middle school age students for after-school robotics and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. They will also provide tutoring activities. And as we've always funded, the housing section. Community Development funds the housing repair program, the emergency repair program, the senior rehab program, and we also fund the neighborhood rehab program. We also provide TBRA, which is a tenant-based rental assistance program that's also provided via community development. We fund clearance and demolition. We fund the code enforcement division. We also fund Habitat for Humanity. And as a new project, Broadway Loft, which will be a 32-unit, 3-story building, and the targeted area is 701 to 35 to 700 blocks of Broadway, as well as 700 blocks of Massachusetts. We fund the first-time home buyers program. And then in regards to our emergency solutions grant, we provide funding for the crisis center for shelter operations. We provide funding for Lydia House shelter operations, as well as homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing, and data collection that they use to keep track of all those that are served. And that is a brief overview of all of the funding that comes out of the Community Development Division for the City of Gary.
Okay. Any council members have any questions regarding this?
I wish we had.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm not looking at it, I don't think, because we don't have the copies yet. But I did want to know more about the performance of the home ownership assistance program. Any data you may share about how much of that was used in this current fiscal year and what the outlook is? And do you think there's enough budgeted for next year? I know that a lot of homeowners would like to use that program, and it is an important program in terms of increasing our population of homeownership.
Yes, sir. Now, I will say, I do apologize to you. I don't have any specific data, but I can get that to you, your specifics that you're requesting at a later date. Probably if I were to contact you via email. But I will say this, that we don't have a broad scope of clients in regards to that program, because we need to remember, it's important, I should say, to remember, anytime federal funds touch any project, there are a litany of hoops that you have to jump through. And to be found eligible, oftentimes some of our constituents have little issues meeting the eligibility requirements that is set forth by the federal government. But again, I do apologize to you not having specific data, but I can certainly get that to you via email.
Thank you.
I had some questions regarding the parks.
Yes, ma'am.
You fund the parks? Did you say?
Park
Holliston?
improvements, yes,
I think
ma'am.
you
The
said
neighborhood,
Holliston, that always
facilities.
perks my ear up, so you know. So what about Holliston? What do you do there?
Well, we have earmarked funds for, and Holliston is listed for improvements to the center. And that will include roofing, interior, and HVAC if necessary.
No.
Yes, ma'am. We've earmarked funds, 2020 funds for that.
Councilman
Yes.
Galvin's question. I think you were somewhat alluding to the fact that because of the COVID situation, whether or not there had been a slowdown in actual housing assistance. And yes, that did occur because in the very beginning, of course, people were reluctant to have people to come into their homes. So the program itself did slow down for a while, but it is picking back up, isn't it, Nicole?
Yes, ma'am, and I apologize, I didn't pick that piece out when he was referring to COVID, and it did slow us down probably 3 to 4 months. But now it has picked back up, and the constituents are much more at ease with having an inspector into their home as well as the contractor.
Excellent.
So the funding that we have allocated is probably going to last us a little bit longer because we had that 3 or 4 months lag. But it will be spent because we've always had enough clients who are interested in that kind of program.
Well, thank you.
Any other council members have questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I have
Yes.
one question. And this might not even be for the right department, but I'm curious to know for the city of Gary, is there a line item, or there might be multiple different categories that are deemed affordable housing supports from the budget?
Is it affordable housing?
Correct. Or no, not for
It
Gary?
depends on what you mean by that. Affordable housing generally, or the affordable housing program generally come out of community development. In the home program that Nicole mentioned, and she mentioned Habitat for Humanities as one of those programs.
Right.
We generally fund programs that will construct affordable housing, and then they also have programs that will meet the needs of persons who are in affordable housing. For example, they have mortgage foreclosure programs, they have down payment assistance programs, that kind of thing. So almost all of that kind of thing is in community development.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that I'm following correctly. This is my first one, right? So, like, for example, that program, and there's additional programs that is under this department that might have funding for that.
Yes.
Is there a way that you can just let me know, just from your perspective, what programs that we have will fall in that same category as kind of affordable housing? And then what is the defined budget that we have allocated to those line items?
If Nicole will give you a copy of the 2020 program listing, they are listed by, at later, because I know you probably don't have it at your hand.
Okay.
Fingertips, I should say. But you'll see that the programs are listed kind of by category.
Okay.
So you'll see what's categorized as affordable housing and how much we have allocated to that particular project.
Okay.
So that should give you an idea.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ms.
And I'll
Nicole.
email that, and it will be titled as the 2020 Annual Action Plan.
Okay.
And you can read through all of that, and
Perfect.
everything is listed as Ms. Holden said, as category.
Okay. Can you?
With the,
I think we'd all like to have a copy of that.
yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, with the respective amounts.
Yes. And can you also provide the council, to Councilwoman Brown, comment in terms of, I know Tolleson Park is near and dear to her heart, in terms of what portion of the funding is earmarked for those improvements to Tolleson Park. If there are any other parks that have been already identified within the project plan for 2020 to receive improvement funds, could you let us know that breakdown as well?
You will see when I email this document to you, you will see that is second in the list of 2020 funding activities.
Okay.
And you will see neighborhood facility improvement, the description, and then you will see the amount of funding.
Okay.
So the funding that has been earmarked,
Oh, thank you.
if it can be,
Spread out.
split or however it can be, so each will get a little something.
Okay.
You'll see the amount of money that is there to work with, and whatever that we can do to give each, well, maybe not each, but what we can do for the park, that amount is there. So you'll see that.
Okay.
And then if you would like, please feel free to respond with an email to see how we can, what we can do.
Okay.
And as far as getting inspections and the like.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Have any questions or comments?
Just quickly, and I'll probably ask this of everyone, is there anyone in your department who is not in compliance with the city's residency ordinance?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think we were gonna take the judge next, but I don't think she's here, is she? Okay. Then we'll go to 2020-50.
Is that the airport, Madam Chair?
That's the park, the airport, it's the airport.
Airport is 50.
Which one is it? It's airport, and then GPTC. Okay.
You have a schedule?
The airport.
You have a schedule?
Thanks. Thanks very much.
Madam Chair, per I'd like to approach and have some handouts, if I may.
Okay.
Madam Chair, how are you?
Thank you. And I would just like for each of you to introduce yourselves when you come to the mic, please.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is, and council members, my name is Dwayne Needham, Executive Director of the Geary Chicago International Airport. I will give a quick overview of the airport, and I do have staff here to address any questions you might have. The handout I gave you, Madam Chair, the quick overview of the airport, how we're structured, how we're aligned, the budget items that you received previously from staff, addresses our operations, facilities, infrastructure and equipment upkeep. To note, the difference between our 2020 budget and our 2021 budget is about a $2 million difference. There was 3 capital projects on schedule for 2020. They were the Texas Alpha Rehab Phase 2, Apron Rehab Phase 4, and the new art facility. Because of the COVID pandemic, those projects were deferred and still will be scheduled as applicable. The COVID pandemic, because of the shutdown in aviation from the start of the pandemic, March to date, we had a $900,000 deficit. We deferred training, travel, meetings, hiring, development projects. Our master plan was delayed, and most notably, special events such as the Chicago and Water Show was canceled this August. We did receive a $157,000 CARES grant, and we're applying that back into our general fund as applicable. We also deferred a scheduled rate increase for fuel flow and landing fees that was to take place June 1st. We deferred that to give relief to the tenants who also had economic shortfalls because of COVID. That was about a $300,000 decrease in revenue. We did pay off the $600,000 interfund loan from last year that was needed for the realignment of our ARC, which is the Aircraft Rescue Firefighting Facility. We did pay that off as scheduled, June 1st. Kudos to staff for that hard work in getting that done. And we did seek and had an approval for another $850,000 interfund loan. I do believe with projected revenue, we should have no problem paying that off, just as we did. And that interfund loan request of that $850,000 was due to the COVID impact. There are positive notes. Our State Board of Account audit for 2019, we received no discrepancies and we got the highest rating. So I'm very proud of the staff for the hard work with that. And the Fitch rating on our bond initiative, we received a AAA rating. It was rated secure. And we were also taken off the watch list. And that was very significant to have that, especially in this time of COVID and the like of the airport. So kudos to staff and everybody for the hard work there. Madam Chair, our customs facility, we had 128 international flights to date from 20 different countries. The positive note is that the on-call demand for customs service was taken down from 48 hours, from 72 hours to 48 hours notice. As we recover from COVID, we believe that will increase the utilization of our customs facility. We're on track to average about 8 international flights per month. So we're very happy with that $1 million investment. And significantly, Madam Chair, was the May lease agreement with UPS. I believe that's going to be a pivot to a strategic niche in this market for air cargo service. I will invite and send notice to all distinguished members of the council, including yourself, Madam Chair, for a VIP opening ceremony for the inaugural operations of UPS. 2 A300 aircraft, a significant projected increase in fuel flow, landing fee, the terminal rent, and the ramp and parking fees we have. Most notably, also 74 full part-time employees that UPS is now vetting and training for that start scheduled at the end of the month. The ARC realignment is still on schedule. Basically, we started and privatized a new division at the airport, fire rescue, and that was an initiative to, again, have relief to the city of Gary, so the firefighters who normally man that are now free to staff the stations in the city. Madam Chair, I yield for any questions from you and the council members as needed.
Anybody have any questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your report and your service to our country and also to our airport. A couple questions. Number one, I heard some news about some personnel shakeups with airports that may or may not have something to do with the revenue projections. I guess I would just ask generally, how are things going with airports? Secondly, what, if any, types of measures were taken to ease the financial burden on tenants at the airport during the COVID crisis?
Sir, I don't speak to definite personnel issues. There is changeover due to attrition with members deciding to leave. Airports can speak to that themselves. But I think the 3P is strong. It is an enterprise, as you know, and I think our record of awards for snow removal and our 139 certification speaks of the day-to-day operation efficiency we have with the airports team. They were instrumental in working with me and the city of Gary and distinguished council as we won the contract with UPS. So, staffing, we will recover and we are going to meet the mandated numbers that we need to effectively manage the airport. The release of the tenants is what I did allude to. The deferment of that rate increase was significantly $300,000 fee increase there, and our job is to continue to work with them, seeking grants, taxiway Alpha Rehab, where we work with the FAA so UPS can have good sound payment for the heavy aircraft to land. And I'm always in communication with the tenants as needed. Anything we can do to help their business and their operation. Thank you. You're welcome, sir.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. I was just looking through the brochure that you have here. Is the military still located there at the facility?
Yes, sir, and the, Gary, it's the Indiana National Guard Aviation Flight Facility. They have an aviation unit and a engineering battalion that drills here.
When do you anticipate UPS grand opening?
October 30th, tentatively, and again, sir, I will be sending invites to yourself and other council members for a VIP ceremony, similar to what we have at the Customs facility.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I know recently we made some change to the way we do fire protection at the airport. How has that worked out for you?
I believe it's a strategic initiative that will definitely benefit us. What we're doing, Madam Chair and council members, we're cross-training. Sir, our operations staff is getting certified to be fire rescue, and we'll be able to attrit down to have still the required manpower. We're always going to be supplemented by the Gary Fire Department, the professionals that they are. But we've been able to reduce that head count and maintain our operation efficiency by cross-training personnel to man the arc. So you got operations and maintenance, staff has been cross-trained to do a dual function, better efficiency overall.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions? Council members have any questions or comments? Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. Okay, Gary Public Transportation.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Finance Committee.
Your name is
It is a pleasure to present the 2021 budget for the year.
Mr. Washington. Would you please introduce yourself? Introduce.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I take my mask off? My name is Michael Washington, and I am performing as the interim director of finance for the Gary Public Transportation Corporation at this time. And this afternoon, it is my pleasure to present to you the 2021 budget for the Gary Public Transportation Corporation. Actually, Madam Chair, our budget is really simple for this year. It increases primarily in the area of capital outlay, and everything else pretty much remains the same. Our area, in the area of capital outlay, our budget has increased by $2 million, and the total budget for 2021 is $11.3 million as compared to $9.2 million for 2020. That represents an increase of a little over 20%. In 2021, we anticipate on acquiring rolling stock, electrical buses to increase our, update our ridership and to increase our efficiency in terms of providing ridership to our customer base. As you know, we provide services for the Gary citizens and for various regions here in Northwest Indiana. The funding for this increase is primarily from our federal funds in the amount of about $7.5 million and from local match, which is about $1.1 million. Those local matches at this point in time does not include any funding from the city of Gary for 2021. In terms of the request for funding and the local property taxes, our actual tax rate for 2021 is lower than our 2020 tax rate by about 1.5 cents. So our tax rate in 2021 is like 18%, and it was about 20% in 2020.
Mr. Washington.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. I think we don't have the full, I know we don't have, what you have. There was some kind of printing error.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Councilman.
So I
I have the handouts and I apologize, I should have given it out.
Oh,
okay.
Okay, that's all we got here.
That's all, that the council approves is the operating.
Oh, I see. It's just this page.
Yes.
Just, well, it's just one page.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's
I didn't know
listed.
It's cut off.
It's cut off though. Yeah.
For the airport and the DVTC, that's what you approve, just the operating budget.
Okay.
But this whole thing should be the 11 million that he just spoke of.
It's not on here.
It's not. It's cut off.
Maybe it's a
We
different,
just have one sheet.
Yeah, it doesn't even show the back like the
then it
total.
does not have the right sheet, it's on the wrong sheet.
Yes, ma'am.
How many pages do we have?
Just for the.
There's two pages, for each council person there, I have about 10, copies, but it's 2 pages, it's a summary, and it's our short narrative of what our, budget is all about for 2021.
Okay. You have that? She got.
I gave it to
Okay. All right. Thank you.
does he have a copy? Does she have a copy already? She might not need to make a copy.
I just gave her a copy.
Okay.
Greg, she already has it.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so as I was saying, our tax rate for 2021 is down from last year, which is a good thing, and this is a burden on the local taxpayer. Like every other agency that operates in this community, of course, COVID affected us in a negative way. Our ridership went down. However, we are recovering from that in the moment, and we also received some federal funding to assist us with that in the amount of about $725,000. That was the revenue. I'm sorry, that was the revenue also.
Madam Chairman, hello, council members. My name is Jerome Parker, and I'm the general manager of Transportation.
Madam Chair, we're gonna need to get some sound in here, because I'm having a hard time hearing different ones come up, and I know I'm not the only one. So we need some house sound inside the room here.
Are there mics on? Oh, there. That mic isn't on.
Petition
You said Jerome what? What's his last name?
Parker.
Yes, Mr. Parker.
I'll try to speak up a lot louder while that matter is being taken care of. Again, my name is Jerome Parker, and I'm the general manager for the Public Transportation Corporation. As Michael was pointing out, the COVID hit us extremely hard. One of the benefits that helped us though was federal government provided Public Transportation with $7.7 million to help us through this COVID process. Now, what they were specific as far as what type of program to use that money for, such as preventive maintenance, operations, things of that nature. But just those areas alone allowed us to do things that we were not able to do in the past. A good example, we were actually able to purchase items like laptops for our employees because of the COVID. We were seeing employees having them telework at home and all that. If it wasn't for the COVID situation that surfaced in the COVID care money, we would not have been able to perform that type of teleworking because we just didn't have the equipment to do it. What we also did was we tried to be as transparent as we possibly could during this process. So we had not only our buses sanitized and cleaned each and every night as they came in to the facility. We also, because of COVID, we were actually able to hire additional cleaners to be down at our Metro Center, and each and every trip that the buses actually came through there, they were wiped down and sanitized, the rails and everything was doing that. We did that as a display so even our customers can see that we were actually there trying to create as much of a safe environment for them as they boarded the buses, at each and every trip. We also had an opportunity to, using the care money,
to actually have fall sanitizing take place at the Metro Center, each and every floor, and also our facility at 35th Avenue. What was amazing about that was those costs came to about a $3,000 price each and every time we had that application done. There's no way we could have possibly done that without the assistance of the CARE money. So the CARE money has actually allowed us to do a number of things to help provide a safe environment, not only for our employees, but also for our riding customers as well, to ensure that we have a safe environment. One of the things that I'll point out, and it's one of those knock on the wood, we've only had, through all this process of trying to ensure that our employees are safe, we've only had 2 of our employees since February that have actually encountered tested positive actually for the COVID virus. But the other amazing thing is that our attendance has been outstanding during the year. We have not had a problem or flux of absenteeism that many of my friends that are in the transit industry have encountered. One of the things that we do is we have a meeting, a telephone conversation once a month with all the transit systems that I have friends, general manager, and we talk about a number of things that we are encountering and try to pass information on to one another to help. And that's what, so I found out that many of my colleagues have all kinds of problems with attendance, where we are not. We're not having it because of the fact that we really believe that us being as transparent as we have been, it really helped our approach as it relates to our employees feeling comfortable. And I'll say one last thing that we did. Our employees were having a lot of concerns as far as the safety and things of that nature. Our only day of not operating services was on Sunday. So what we did was we set up a conference call, telephone conference call for all our employees to actually call in. And it was a 2.5-hour conference call. And it gave the employees an opportunity to ask questions, and we would actually be able to provide information to them in regards to our plan. We got a number of feedback from the employees as far as other things that we can do to help our employees during this COVID process. And all that information has been implemented. One of the issues was we were only requiring the drivers and the maintenance employees wearing masks and gloves. Well, one of the employees said, well, I'm walking through the entire facility. I don't feel comfortable. So we changed it and made it mandatory for all employees, admin and everything, to wear gloves and masks the entire time that they're at work. Again, we need a transparent atmosphere so the employees can see that we're doing everything we possibly can to keep a safe environment for them during this COVID process. So the COVID has been, it's been mind-boggling, and it has caused not only us but many other transit systems to think completely outside the box of transit norms. But we've been able to do that because the money has been available to allow us to do that. If the money wasn't there, I would hate to explain to you just exactly some of the things that we would have to be dealing with.
We continue to try and provide cost-effective operations, and therefore, Mr. Parker's explanation is how we're able to do that. The Transportation Department continues to be operated upside down. By that I mean local revenues alone. Local revenues come nowhere close to supporting the operation of the money we receive from ridership and the purchase of bus fares, but it is through the FTA and participation of some communities. We have developed relationships with, such as Hammond and Maryville and the Lake County Council, that provides additional dollars for us to continue to provide cost-effective services for our local ridership and for those communities that participate with us. So, Madam Chair, we present our budget for adoption for 2021, and we will entertain any questions that the council members have at this time.
Madam
Okay.
Chair?
Question?
Yes, Madam Chair. You know, it's been a long time since I've had the pleasure of riding a bus. Just curious, you know, back when I used to ride, I think it was like maybe 35 cents for the fare and maybe 5 cents or 10 cents for a transfer. What is the fare now?
$2.75, I believe, is the fare to ride the bus. And to that end, we have not had a ridership, an increase in ridership fare for several years. And we don't anticipate that we're going to have an increase this year.
What is your annual, what would you say your annual ridership probably?
The number of riders for last year was a little bit under a million. 990 something odd thousand riders for that year. And the year before that, it was like 1.1 million riders.
Have you, because of the COVID, have you made any restrictions on your buses so far as seating or anything such as that?
When the COVID initially hit, we were down to about 26% of our total ridership, our number of riders. We were down to 26% of our total ridership compared to 2019. So it hit us pretty hard. We are now, as things start getting to open up and the businesses are starting to open up, we're at about 62% of our total ridership compared to last year. So our numbers are growing, but they're still not where they were prior at this same time last year.
Okay, and just one other question. Mr. Parker, you and I had some brief conversation a little while ago. Me and Mr. Parker and I are very familiar with each other. And you had mentioned that there is a project that you have going on, some land that you acquired on Broadway. Could you speak on what we're doing there?
You're gonna have to excuse me, I've got this ringing in my ear from this morning.
In a prior conversation that you and I had, you mentioned that there was a project that you have going on Broadway, some land that you had acquired, I believe, on 19th, 20th and Broadway.
19th and Broadway?
19th, 20th and Broadway, in that area, you had mentioned there was some land that you had acquired that the Gary Drive. Could you speak on that, please?
What we did was, we had we had property at 26 and Broadway. It was probably left about a quarter of an acre of land. The J&J
Breakfast Club.
Breakfast
Yes.
actually wanted to acquire that property from us. Through negotiations and conversations with the city of Gary, we were actually able to turn that property over to J&J, and in turn, the city provided us property at 20th and Broadway. What's remarkable about this is that it's a little bit less than an acre property there. And where we were actually talking about building a transit system, a transfer center at 26 and Broadway, the acquisition of the ownership now of the 20th and Broadway actually allows us to build a much bigger facility at that location. So they really benefited us tremendously as part of what we're going to be able to do at that location.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Parker, you know you have property on 22nd and Adams. Do you all plan on doing anything with that?
22nd and
Adams, Jefferson, right in that area. Yes, sir. The precinct committeeman over there, she brings it up as often as she can.
Here's what I've been told in regard to 22nd. That's the old
Bus barn,
facility.
yes, sir.
The environment, the ground at that location, I've been told that it's environmentally not sound. We used to have, I used to be, when we were at that location, I was actually a bus driver at that location when we were there. And we had our fuel tanks underground, and and several other tanks. And what I've been told is, when we were looking at opportunities, I was told that the 22nd, and we used to call it 22nd and Jefferson, location was environmentally not in any shape in regards to talking about selling.
So we're just going to just leave it there?
I'm sorry.
So we're just going to leave it there?
Right now, there's no plan to do anything with
Okay.
that location. And keep in mind that we've been out of that location, I believe, since 1980.
Since I was little, yeah.
So, just, if I could, Madam Chair, I want to follow up on Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell's question. What would be the cost of, or projected cost, or have you done any studies on the cost to remediate the environmental concerns? And/or have you considered putting it up for sale with the understanding that whomever bought it would have to remediate the environmental issues? I don't think it should sit for another, if it doesn't have to, right? There should be some purpose for it.
I'm going to be honest with you. I do not know. I inquired about it when I first got here, trying to find out, identify the different properties that we actually did own. And basically what I was told was that
Excuse
that
me.
property was just
Chief
not.
of Staff can answer that
So
for us.
I can't give you a real answer. I can find out from you in regard to that. But I was just told that, the property was in a situation where environmentally, it was going to be difficult to sell because of the condition of possible leaks and things of that nature from the field.
Councilman Godwin, in another life, I was the interim general manager. And at that time, we explored looking at remediating that site. And then it was about $20 million. We explored looking at federal funds to see if we could use those. We weren't able to identify anything. Since then, that might have changed, but it was a substantial amount of money, and the agency just didn't.
That makes a lot of sense. Right, right. And I don't know whether there's any, I mean, I think it'd be worth looking to see if there's any federal dollars, that's a lot of dollars, to remediate it, but that's good to know.
Get some trees.
Absolutely. I did have one other question, Madam Chair. You said there were about 900,000 to 1.2 million riders, which seems like a lot. Is that unduplicated? Is that unique? But is that unique riders? Unduplicated? Or is this repeat riders?
Actually, the number should have been revised. We did for 2019, we had a little bit less than 1.1 million. In 2018, we had 900. So we did, and one of the increases, we did do some changes to our BMX route. That's the route that goes straight down Broadway from the Metro Center, and it goes as far as the hospital in Maryville and also the Lake County building. What we even did was, we did some changing. Can you continue to speak up? I'm sorry. What we did was, as far as to help increase the ridership, we did improve on our BMX routes. And the BMX route is our express route that goes from the Metro Center all the way to hospital in Maryville and Lake County. The change that we did was we increased the frequencies. We now have buses going, traveling down BMX every 20 minutes. So that increased it, and that did help our ridership. One of the things that as we looked through, we were looking through our ridership to see what we could do about improving our service. And we just added, we cut that service back to only 2 buses going down. Normally there's 4 buses going down Broadway on the BMX service. But when the ridership dropped 26%, it just did not make sense for us to have 4 buses out there. We just added the 2 additional buses back out there because of the ridership. And what we did was, individuals that were coming from East Chicago. But we have connectors from East Chicago. They get one of the Gary Transit buses, and then from there, they can take them straight out to the government building, Lake County government building. But what was happening was, there were two transfers that had to take place. And we got feedback from our customers saying that that's a whole lot of transferring to get to the government building. Well, one of the things that we decided to do was to change the structure of the route. So once an individual gets off to the government building without any transfers involved. Well, and we really believe that's going to help our ridership in the upcoming months.
What, just lastly, what is the average daily ridership? So,
The average day.
on a day of the week, like how many people?
Okay, right now, normally our average ridership was about between 21 and 2,300 riders. We're at 11. We're at about 1,100 riders.
Perfect. Thank you. I think a few of us are going to take a trip. I have not ever been on the bus, and so I'm looking forward to finding a route that maybe some of us can take. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have just a couple more questions. How many routes do we have? Do you have?
Currently, right now, we have 7 what we call regional bus lines, meaning that these are buses that are actually going to Maryville, going to Maryville, going to Hobart, certain sections in East Chicago, things of that nature. Then we have 5 local routes. Those are routes that actually are operating within the city limits.
Operations.
The double track.
Double track.
Well, this is what is a plan that we really believe is going to be able to help us. That double rail is going to increase also adopted is that having some type of connector at certain designated locations, so individuals are not driving all the way to the South Shore Station, because the South Shore parking lots are kind of limited as far as the number of cars parking. So what we're hoping that they're going to take a look at is designate like what I used to have when I was in Atlanta, these parking lot locations. And you would actually have vehicles like some cases small buses actually going to those locations, picking up individuals that are parked at that location and bringing them to the South Shore Station. So what it does is, and that's all based on the South Shore actually agreeing to assist with the funding to actually run that service. We can't do anything just off the cuff of putting service out there without getting a local funding to actually help us to perform that service. And that's one of the things that we're looking that's really going to might benefit us, like double track, because that is going to increase the number of people that are using that service. And I saw no plans in many cases where the parking is going to be substantially increased. So at some point in time, they're not going to have ample parking. And that's why we're making suggestions now is look at the possibility of other land in outlying areas where you can actually use those as parking lot locations, have individuals park there, and then take the service that we can provide them. And in the initial stages, smaller vehicles. And as the service increases, maybe bigger buses to actually take into those locations. So we're looking at it as a golden opportunity for us to participate in that and get additional local funding, but also increase our ridership.
Thank you.
One couple quick questions. Let me just commend you all on the effort you all put forth in, I believe it was last year, where we got the express bus on Broadway to go from downtown out to the Maryville to the Crown Point area there. Just commend you all, and I see the ridership where I see more people standing at the bus shelters throughout. And I also want to commend you on, as those shelters get damaged, how the quick response that you all have been doing in making sure that they've been fixed and back up and serviced like they should be. But I do have a question about the other shelter that's not on the Broadway route throughout the city. What are we doing to upgrade those shelters?
The shelters on the route themselves.
Yes. The shelters on the other routes.
What our board in our last board of directors meeting, they recommended that we actually started including not just what we were doing was sanitizing all of just the location at Metro Center and the facility. The board recommended, because we have this CARES money, we can actually include our bus shelters. Not only do we have 20 bus shelters on Broadway, we have about 13 additional shelters throughout the Gary service area. So the plan is that we will have individuals actually coming in. And again, it's not costing us additional money from our operating fund because we can use this money, the CARES money. And I want to add one item to that. The wonderful thing about CARES money is 100% reimbursement. So if we spend $3,000, the federal government only pays 80%, and we have to come up with 20%. So this affords us to do a number of things that we normally could not do, and actually implement those in our program and use those specifically for CARES money. So the plan is that we actually have put out, calling in different vendors. They actually submit to us quotes. How much will they charge us to clean, fog, and sanitize all 55 approximately of our shelters that we have in our service.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, knowing that's happening at the shelters, but I was really geared more or less the shelter that needs to be replaced with new shelters. In particular, I get plenty of calls from the property owner at the small farm, where she's continuing to talk about how much money she's invested in her property. And the two shelters that sit outside the property, one we have taken down completely because it was in danger for the public, but the other one definitely needs some attention also too.
Prior to me getting here, what the system was actually doing was every time they had a damaged vehicle, damaged shelter, they would actually go through the solicitation process to have that damaged vehicle or damaged shelter actually replaced. And I told them that that's too much work for us to do. So what we did was, we're actually having a solicitation where a proposal is putting out. And what's going to take place is we're going to have one vendor that either will replace, install, or repair a shelter. And all we have to do is that location, and they determine if that shelter needs to be replaced or to be repaired. So we kind of cut down on our dime time because it really doesn't make a lot of sense for us to have a shelter down, damaged, and 3 or 4 months later, it's still sitting there damaged.
Right. How soon do you see that going into effect? How soon do you see that going into effect?
I believe the ending date for the proposals was last Friday.
Okay.
So the evaluation will take place by the staff, and then they will make a recommendation to the general manager as far as their far as just getting a shelter repaired.
Right.
Because they were going out and having this done each and every occurrence. But I said, that's just too much work. So we've got one vendor for 1 year.
Okay.
And that is, and we only pay them based on when we send them out, for repairs or installations. So it's a situation where we only pay when we actually have them come out and do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Is that it? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have the mayor.
Madam President, Madam Chair, I'd like to first just give a little overview of the budget itself. To let you know, some of the changes, that have occurred, especially in 101 General Board. When we began the budget process, by just starting, with the 2020 budget amounts for 101 General and did, our cash projections and estimates for the maximum tax levy. We understood at that point that we would probably be about almost $3 million less in income for 2021. So as a result of that, there have been some significant changes in the 2021 budget. You'll see that as we go forward, as each department actually presents their budgets. But I'll just say in general, the departments were charged with not exceeding their 2020 budget in terms of the salary budget. And where there were actual decreases, I've let those departments know that there have been increases in their budget. And in particular, those decreases have occurred in the public safety area, because that is the primary or the largest area of the budget in general. With regard to the mayor's office, or one other thing I want to say, there was also a decrease in our cumulative capital development fund amount that will be coming in 2021 of almost $150,000. And we also will experience a decrease in our seated funding, and that's the last sheet that I passed out tonight to you to show the revised amount for Fund 462. There will also be a reduction in those funds for 2021.
Which fund was that?
Fund 462 seated. Tonight I passed out as a single sheet that shows the reduction in the amount that we had budgeted in 2020 versus 2021.
Okay.
With regard to the mayor's office, there was a change in the salary structure. There was a position eliminated, and the salary of one position was increased by $5,000. I think another was increased by $2,000. That was a change in the salary budget. Overall, the mayor's budget decreased by about $29,000.
Thank you. One of the questions I had, I did mention this to Attorney Copeland, and I could be incorrect, but in previous years, the amount of funds coming from GSD, the Gary Sanitary District, was specifically outlined in the budget. And again, I may be incorrect. Interlocal agencies, if you will, would be shown on the budget. I could be incorrect, but in any event, I'd like to know anyone in any of these budgets, but since we're on the mayor's budget, is receiving, or has received, a payment from Gary Sanitary District for this fiscal year, and are there any anticipated payments for 2021 from the Gary Sanitary District?
Mayor,
Okay.
myself. That's it.
Okay. And what are the amounts?
Is
for
it
the-
just as I recall, we're on the mayor.
Yeah.
Oh, just the mayor's?
Okay.
Okay.
And how much is that projected to be for 2020?
By previous administrations, maybe even before, the previous administration.
Is that based on the consent decree between the federal government and the Gary Sanitary District?
With regard to the other staff persons, I believe that.
I'm referring to
Salary.
the 54,000.
I don't have Mike, but I believe that's correct. The 54,000 is enumerated in the consent decree. The other salaries are between an interagency agreement or some type of agreement between the sanitary district and the city of Gary to provide stipends to HR, chief of staff, controller, at one point the deputy mayor, PR. There are several because they interacted with
Is there a special administrator of the Gary Sanitary District?
I don't know.
At this point, my understanding is no.
Has there been a special administrator for the Gary Sanitary District since January 1 of 2020?
I believe yes,
And who is that?
Jerome Prince. I'm
So-
not sure when that stopped, Councilman, so I don't want, I'm not sure what you're getting at, but I just know that at one point there was a as happened in previous administrations and this year. The current mayor or the new mayor applied to be the special administrator of the Gary Sanitary District. There's always been somewhat of a lull between that application, I'll say, and when it actually occurred. In this particular case, at some point, a decision was made that there would not be a special administrator. I don't know when that was.
But I guess the question is that payments were made based on the role of special administrator vis-a-vis the consent decree, but there has not been an appointed special administrator this fiscal year.
There may not have been an appointed one, but there's certainly the mayor, the current mayor, has acted in that role just as other mayors have acted in that role.
But one doesn't
But,
just,
I'm not, like I said, I can't give you any other information because that's not my area of responsibility or authority, so I can't give you the information that you're looking for.
well, thank you. I think it's important, and I'm not trying to beat up on you at all. I know that you're here representing the mayor's office. But if the position of special administrator is per the consent decree, and the 54,000 derives from the consent decree, if there has not been an appointed special administrator in 2020, then it is inconceivable to me that based on that, any payments should have come in 2020 for the role of special administrator, and I don't see how we project any in 2021. But I do look forward to getting the information. Thank you.
Do you know who we're gonna get the information from?
I think Attorney Holden is going to do that, and I did reach out to Director Ricard, ask him as well, but I think as we go through, again, historically, this was printed on the budget.
It was.
The amount of money that's coming from GSD.
It was.
And it's not this year.
Right.
So I think I'd like to see this revised to reflect that. I know there are about 6 to 8 positions.
Those positions were printed on the budget before.
Right.
Yes.
So I would just ask the administration to correct this for our precedent.
And also, Madam Chair?
Yes.
One other thing I did notice on the budget, normally we have the 2020 reflection of what we approved in 2020.
Right.
And also, and the only one I've seen is the Gary Court has done that. They show 2020 in theirs, and then they show the reflection of what they're proposing for 2021. So we have a clear comparison of what we're actually looking at.
Right.
So those are my only observations there.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? So we'll be expecting to get that information, right? Those persons who are paid from the Gary Sanitary District will be shown on this budget. Okay. All right. Is that it for the mayor's office now? Okay. Then we'll move on to the council. Oh, is she here?
Judge can go ahead with.
Okay, she's, oh, I don't have my glasses on, Judge. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair and area common council members. As I stand here, and I don't have a copy of my budget on my phone. My budget this year is actually, the ending result is the same amount that it was in 2020. I gave a few raises, including one to myself. It has been about 10 years since my staff and everyone who works with the city of Gary has received a raise. So every year, I try to give 4 or 5 people just additional monies within my budget to compensate for their inability to have raises over the years. I will let the council know that the Gary City Court never closed during the pandemic, so we have worked continuously for the last 9 months. And for this year, the budget is the same. As it relates to the total budget, I believe you're down about $700. And that is the city court budget in essence.
Anyone have any questions from the judge?
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk. Oh, are we back? Okay, we'll let the clerk go next and then the council. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, council members, attorney. Earlier today, I provided a note for council members indicating the fact that how many times methods I use to provide raises for myself as well as my staff. And that method included eliminating a position which covered all of the line item raises, and it did not increase the bottom line of my budget. So I am requesting that the council approve the budget that has been submitted, and it is primarily the same bottom line as it was in the previous year. So are there any questions?
Madam Chair?
Anybody have any questions of the clerk?
Yeah, Madam Chair, one question. How you doing, Madam Clerk?
I'm doing fine, how are you?
Good. Fantastic. Just one question. The one position that you eliminated, was someone in that position, or is this just a position that was open?
No one was in that position at this time.
Thank you.
Okay. Nobody else? No other question? Okay, I think Councilman Godwin was gonna do the council. I could do it, but I think he was gonna do it. Here you
Okay,
go.
Madam Chair, I can go sit down? Okay.
You done? No one had any questions, so.
Okay.
I guess you're done.
Thank you.
We're ready for the council.
Your temperature is normal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Gary Common Council has kept the bottom line of this budget the same. We did make some cost of living adjustments for the entire city council staff to reflect cost of living changes. We also added $40,500 to do community outreach within our districts, so that each member will have roughly $4,500 to support special projects, support improvements within their district. And of course, our at-large members can use those dollars throughout the city and partner with members who have districts to do some of the projects that we'd like to see done, as well as support initiatives that are citizen-led. So this is something I don't think that has existed for some time in terms of our having dollars to do that. I emphasize that we did not increase the bottom line at all. We made cuts, and we reduced one of our intern positions. We cut our supply expenses, we cut our postage expenses, and we cut our travel and professional development expenses. We don't anticipate doing as much travel given the current COVID-19 environment, but in general, we found that we were not using all of it, and it could be better used to provide direct service to the residents who we are elected to serve. Again, our bottom line has not changed. We did make some cost of living adjustments, and we did increase the dollars, actually create dollars, by making the cuts in order to support citizen and community outreach. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, just one question, Madam Chair. Councilman Godwin, I'm just looking here. Is this a typo, office manager? There was a reduction in salary?
That is correct in terms of that amount, and we did that in consultation with the office manager, and so everyone is on the same page, given where her salary is in that position going forward.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to council report. Can we do the law department?
Would department heads, if they come up, please introduce themselves?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Trustee King, Corporation Counsel for the City of Gary. I'm a newbie, January 1, 2020. So this is the first time I've had the opportunity to present a budget to this fine body and all the other members of the Finance Committee. Good evening.
Good evening.
The law department is unique in that, like few departments, it touches every single department within the city. We represent, as lawyers, every single municipal department. There are several departments that have their own legal counsel, such as the Gary City Clerk, the Gary Sanitary District, the Gary Common Council. But the law department has interaction with all departments, as you all know. In 2020, we had a staff of 4. We were budgeted for 5 positions, 6 actually, including a second assistant city attorney and an office operations manager. In the 2021 proposed budget, we eliminated the operations manager position, and it was moved over to the building department, to my understanding. And we also eliminated an attorney position, the assistant city attorney 2 position, at the rate of $50,000, and replaced that position with a paralegal. We believe with the lawyers that we have on staff and a full-time paralegal, we'll be able to do more with that nucleus. Being able to reduce that attorney position and the extraneous operation manager position, we are actually able to realize a savings on our salary budget of roughly $5,000. With that, we were able to give our employees an additional 5% raise across each position, including myself, and still come off with a $5,000 net decrease in the salary budget. Some of the things that I'm proud to report that our department has been able to do in 2020 is we have implemented a case management program that is web-based, coming from private law practice. The city of Gary has hundreds of files and matters. And we were able to implement a case management program that is web-based, where all of our employees can enter information, access information, wherever they may be. We also have weekly staff meetings now, where we meet with the entire department. It's been via Zoom since March 13th, but we tend to like that because we can still conduct business from wherever we are. We've also increased our focus on professional development with our lawyers. We all belong to an Indiana association where we can receive deep discounts for continuing legal education and professional development. That's important. You all know City Attorney Rodney Pohl. He has 5 years experience with the city and some experience outside the city. The Assistant City Attorney, Stephen Jenkins, is in his 3rd year of the practice. So I felt it incumbent upon me to work with these younger lawyers and make sure that they have the professional development that they need until they can have, and I can provide some mentorship for them so that they can finally hone their skills legally and be up on all the latest and the greatest. Especially with this pandemic, this affected the law regarding the administration and city government, local government, state government, federal government, you name it. So we lawyers have to be up on that in order to be able to properly advise our clients. And lastly, we have started to systematize various processes in the different city departments. We were on a roll to do this with many of the other departments until COVID-19 hit, and then we had to start to reprioritize that. But we are working with the building department and code enforcement to revamp that system, as well as our Department of Public Works under the direction of Ms. Barber. We're trying to increase that workflow and make it more efficient for all parties involved. That's my presentation. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
questions, comments from council members?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just had clarification question for Attorney McCain. How you doing? I'm sorry?
She could hear you.
So my question for you is, who currently has the title of city attorney?
Rodney Pohl carries the title of city attorney, and Stephen Jenkins is the assistant city attorney.
Okay. So is this correct? The assistant city attorney's one salary is higher than the city attorney?
That's the question that I had when I looked at it, Councilwoman Atkins. No, that is not correct, because some of Attorney Pohl's salary is supplemented by the Gary Sanitary District.
Okay.
As well as the Community Development Department.
Okay, okay. And that's what we were talking to earlier, that's not on this?
Correct.
Okay, I got
The
it.
assistant city attorney's salary comes from, in its entirety, from the city budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I want to thank Attorney McCain for his presentation, and as I've said before, as a lawyer, they take generalists to a whole different degree. And when I have seen what Attorney Pohl has done down arguing police employment cases, or dealing with economic development issues, or you're doing things with public works, I mean, the breadth is so wide, and this is truly our law firm, and the billable rate is not that high. So I want to commend our law department for doing a great job. I'm glad to see that there are some increases. I think it's deserved. This is truly public service in terms of what lawyers are paid in the private sector, especially given the amount of hours and time and skill and expertise they put in. So I'm glad to see that. I do want to have the GSD portion on here, and I think we talked about that. I just want to emphasize that. I think it's important for us to understand the totality of the salaries that we are approving. I did want to just ask whether, in your spare time, which I know is not a lot, there are a lot of cities who are using what's called litigation finance. The private sector, I should say, is using it more than the public sector, but essentially, litigation finance is sort of almost like a venture capital for legal issues. And so there's these various companies that look at, small businesses, cities, or big businesses who don't have the capital to fund litigation. So if there are folks who have injured the city, but we don't have the dollars or the resources to fight the case, but we think if we fought the case, then we could get a great return, a great judgment, then they basically finance the research, the specialists, et cetera, the legal team to do it. And they of course, get a portion of the proceeds that we otherwise would not be able to collect because we just don't have the human capital and time to do it. So it is something I'd be curious if we might want to investigate, and I'd be interested in helping partner with the folks who do that, because it might help us recover some stuff from people we just don't have the time to do it.
I certainly will look into that, Councilman Donovan. I was not aware that litigation finance was available to governmental entities, so I appreciate your educating me on that. We are planning on, in my private practice, I'm a plaintiff's lawyer. So this is my first foray into defending cases. But I try to bring that plaintiff's lawyer mentality into the department. We are actively prosecuting the gun case. We are one of the few municipalities left. And we are working with the Brady Foundation in DC, and we are also interviewing firms throughout the country, but mostly in Chicago, to help us with those efforts. And we've also formed a partnership with Harvard Law Professor Ron Sullivan, who has agreed to help out his hometown by working on the case. So in that vein that you discussed, we are looking at ways to involve others so that we won't have to incur the cost of experts and multi-volume depositions and things like that. but I will certainly look into the litigation financing for governmental entities because I'm sure we're going to need it at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Attorney McCain?
Madam Chair, I was out, and I do apologize for that. The operational manager that you had in place, and I see it's eliminated, what did that person do? And I'm sorry if you went over there already.
I'm going to move a little closer.
Okay.
Because I'm not 42 anymore.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The operational manager that was eliminated,
Yes, that
I just want
was-
to know what did that person do?
That was formerly Kenya Macklin, and then that portion of the salary went to Millie Glenn. So now that portion of the salary is in the building department where it belongs.
Okay.
So
That was
she is,
part of the law department prior to mine.
excuse me, so Millie Glenn is with code enforcement, right?
Yes,
Okay.
code enforcement. But a portion of her salary was coming out.
Comes
of
from
the
the law department. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is Attorney Cole the only person that gets a salary from another fund?
From the, I may have to, is my chief of staff still over there? Okay. Chief, is Attorney Paul the only law department? Okay. Yes.
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 Okay.
You said that was GSD and what other?
And community development. I think $5,000 is the salary from there.
It comes out of code enforcement.
Okay.
Community development fund.
Mhm.
May I answer any other questions?
I think that's.
Your paralegal living, Gary?
I'm sorry?
Does your paralegal live in Gary?
I don't have a paralegal yet. We
You don't?
eliminated the position of Assistant City Attorney 2, and we are going to
So that's open.
advertise the position of paralegal to help us with our clerical needs and our non-attorney needs. Our office manager, Janet Wallace, is splendid. She keeps all the trains running on time. She makes sure that we do what we're supposed to do and invoices get down to the finance department on time. But she's not a legally trained assistant. So we thought that a paralegal would be a great position to fill there to do our discovery and to do all the things that need to be done so that we don't have to rely as much on outside counsel. We can take care of some cases in-house.
Any other questions or comments from council members? Okay, Attorney McCain.
Thank you very
I
much.
think you're free to go.
Thank you.
Okay. Public Works.
Good afternoon, Council, Madam Chair. I am Marietta Barber, and I am the Executive Director for Public Works Division, and that's going to encompass vehicle maintenance, general services, buildings and grounds, and traffic. And if I could, I would like to start with the operating budget for 10190. The only change here in the operating budget is the fact that professional services was $150,000 originally. And I took $60,000 of the operation budget from that and moved it over to the salary budget. That's the only change there. Okay. Any questions on the operating budget? Okay, if not, then I can talk about the general fund 10190 for public works. And the only change changes here, they're basically changing titles to make it make sense. The other thing that I did here was there was a building superintendent position. When we came into 2020, that position was actually there, and then it was moved out. And we found we really needed that, so I asked for it to be refunded to that position. The other change was that there is a part-time custodial position I asked to eliminate. Nobody is in that position currently. I went back, they have not used that position, I know this year and last year. So I took that position and created what I think we all needed was a traffic manager. I've got some budgets that will come up under tomorrow night, and I think it'll make sense when you see that there is no administrative support at all on those other budgets. The other difference here is that I took the $60,000 from the professionals, from the operating budget, moved it over here for professional services, because I felt we needed to put back a city engineer. At one time, when I was public works director before, there was a city engineer, so that daily, if somebody called and said, we've got a problem at 25th Avenue, what are they doing? Something happens at 18th and Broadway, what's going on, or they're not getting it quite right, that person actually had feet on the ground. And they would leave and go immediately because they worked the whole 8-hour shift. So I think we kind of need that for a lot of the construction and the work that is going on currently in the city and the projects that are forthcoming. That is basically the differences. And like I said, some of this title changes to make it make sense where the person is actually doing the duties that they're supporting. Are there any questions on, and let me address my salary here. I do receive a salary from GSD. That salary is about $11,000. It totals my total salary to $75,000.
Thank you.
Okay. And I am the only one that receives that salary, and to my knowledge, all of my employees on this budget do lateral.
Excellent.
Questions on the 101 general fund for public works?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a question for you related to the city engineer role.
Civil engineer?
The civil, so I have a question about a city engineer. So is there currently anyone that is in a position of a city engineer?
Yes, that contract was held prior to us. It was given to Robinson Engineering, and that's where Public Works' entire budget of $150,000 went to that company for the engineering services. My thought and take on it is that even though we still need them, we also actually need to have some of that money diverted to on-staff civil engineer.
Okay, and so in the proposal you have, you've already, you reduced a portion of the 150 to support? Okay. When does the contract with Robinson expire?
It will expire December 31st.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
All right, I may have missed this, so you're ending your contract with Robinson Engineering?
Okay, so I didn't say I was gonna end their contract. The contract ends, as we know, December 31st, that's when it would end. What I did was, they work on a lot of the major projects that we may have come out that's federally funded. What I didn't personally think we needed was to have the whole $150,000 dedicated to that.
Okay.
I thought we needed to have an engineer, a civil engineer that could go out daily and monitor these projects. So it was not to put anybody out of the service or anything, it was just to give the city what I believe the city needs.
And the 90,000 is what the leftover, basically.
Yes,
And-
unless I negotiate that.
Better, right, okay. And may I ask just in general, I know we have all of our contracts pretty much come through the Board of Public Works. What are our MVE, hope I said that right. MWBE numbers in terms of minority and women-owned businesses with whom the city is doing business? And also,
our local businesses. So what are our numbers in terms of local firms that we are contracting with?
Okay, I can't tell you total numbers. If we wanted, I would look at it, and that's partially, that's because a lot of, every department contracts with different, individuals. I don't actually know who contracts with who. We're just basically keep a record when those contracts go through the board to make sure they're in order.
Do we track whether a contractor is a minority or woman-owned business or disadvantaged business enterprise or a local company? Do we track those numbers?
We don't track them as a whole in Public Works. Like for me, I can tell you if I've got 5 contractors. I can tell you if my contractors are local contractors. I can't tell you that across all of the departments.
I think it would be interesting for us to, I don't know whether there's some kind of application, I'm not trying to create more work, because I know there's a lot to do. But if somewhere on the application form or the vendor form, if they were to designate that they were MBE or a woman-owned business or a disadvantaged business enterprise or a local business in terms of them having a business license with the city, I'm not trying to create a lot of work, but I do think it would be good for us to be able to say, because we probably have good numbers, for us to be able to say, 35% of our vendors are minority or woman-owned businesses, or 25 or 30% of the vendors are located here in the city. I think having that baseline will give us numbers to continue to improve toward increasing opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses, et cetera. So.
I'm not sure that would come right through Public Works. I can look at that.
Okay.
And that's because it's just like with me. I give my contractors a bigger packet. But that information in turn is turned into finance per department of who they are contracting with. So I don't always see that.
So I have a follow-up question, if it's okay, to Councilman Godwin's point. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Executive Order 2 that Mayor might have submitted or approved or initiated earlier this year that spoke to the procurement practices of the city. And I think within that executive order, it spoke about us having initiatives to improve our MBE tracking. So if we don't track that currently through the application process or through the award process through the Board of Public Works, how from the installation of that executive order, and again, I might have the number wrong, but I believe it was a procurement focused executive order, how have you guys been tracking since the installation of that?
Like I said, we have not tracked it since I've come back into Public Works or when I was there prior.
Okay.
I'm not beyond tracking it, and I don't disagree.
Okay.
Like I said, that determines which department should actually be involved in the tracking.
Okay. Okay. So Attorney Colvin, I'm sorry?
Her department. That might need to be more centralized in her department.
Yes, ma'am, because, I know that, I was happy to see the executive order that Mayor did, speaking to procurement practices and, establishing what those initiatives will be for the city. So we haven't started tracking that. We definitely need to initiate a process to do so. And to Councilman's point, be able to, have some core metrics in terms of how we're doing, and then probably set some key performance metrics, probably for Public Works specifically as we move forward within the administration. Thank you.
Just quickly, you were in Public Works before. How would you say that the head count has been reduced? I know it used to be a whole lot more folks. And I think it's important for the public to know, who have high expectations, as they should, in terms of city services, just how meager the resources are with which you have to work. So is there some comparison when we say 2000 versus 2010 versus 2020 in terms of how our resources are reduced and our human capital has been reduced?
Definitely human capital, and the resources are limited. In 2010, well, I'll go as far as, I think in 2010 is when at one point it was formed of, I had demolition, I also had the street department, we had streets and sanitation, and then a lot of that was eliminated. When I came back this time, demolition does not, it's not part of my structures. They're not on construction. we no longer have a streets and sanitation department, you know. And then we work now with probably 27 general service employees. And the thing is, when I look back, and even prior to me coming, they may have had almost 100 people that form that. So we are, you know, we are basically way under manpower and resources.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Godwin, to that point, you know, I ran general services also in 2012. And, you know, she's absolutely right. You know, our manpower was significantly lower. As, you know, Attorney Colvin has said, I believe that there was a reduction in 2006 under the Clay administration. I believe it was about 151 people during that time. I had an opportunity to ask Mayor Hatcher, you know, when he was alive, how many people he actually had when he was the mayor running general services. And even though he had garbage collection, he told me he had upwards 375 people in general services. So there has been a significant reduction.
I think that's important for the public to know.
Absolutely.
People, you know, think that there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse that's going on, and that we're operating, you know, under the 1%, 2%, and 3% tax caps, and that affects services, and that affects service delivery. The city is not shrunk in terms of streets and roads and complaints and issues, so I just wanted to highlight that fact. I know this particular area is one that we probably get the most calls about, but has experienced probably proportionately one of the larger cuts over the last 20 or so years.
I have one question. Excuse me, Madam Chair. I have one other question. Ms. Barber, how are you as it relates to safety equipment for the personnel that's out there on the street? Are we budgeting for that, or are we lacking there, you know, so far as PPE to keep our people safe?
We are lacking there. One thing I will do, and most of you that know me, I will ask. If it's something I need, I will ask. I will go to another department and ask, can you help? What do you have? We've just been a little creative. We did some scrap that was behind general service building, and we had some funding that came in from that. And we just took in, you know, ordered little safety items that we could use. Like you said, that's a department that is truly underfunded. I think most people do not understand the limited resources. And hopefully we can create some partnerships with some of our vendors to be able to assist us in getting some of the equipment. I know you used that same method in 2012 when you came on.
I was very fortunate, you know, having been a manager out at U.S. Steel, I was very fortunate to go out and, you know, solicit U.S. Steel for donations as it related to safety equipment. That may be something we need to look at again, be it U.S. Steel, be it NIPSCO, be it any of the entities around in this area, that they may be able to contribute back, making a donation back to the back to general services as it relates to PPE.
Just one final question for me. I know that the recycling was moved to the Gary Sanitary District. And I know that we've had some questions back and forth about the Lake County Solid Waste Grant. And that grant hasn't come before us, or when it will come before us.
And I don't know when it's going to come before us, and I have some concerns about that. Because my recycling was supposed to be picked up last Thursday, and hasn't been picked up yet. And it's almost Thursday again, and I called and asked about it, and they said they would get it today. It still hasn't been picked up. So, I don't know. Do you have a problem in your neighborhood with your recycling?
Not no more.
Not anymore.
They picked mine up today. Today was garbage.
Council Lady Brown? Madam Chair, you know, we had some problems also in the 2nd District, and what I found is that they have generated a list that they work from. And if your address isn't on that list, believe it or not, if your address is not on that list, you don't get picked up.
Well,
so I can give you some information after the meeting as to who you can contact.
I just brought that point up because, again, and our attorney and the corporation counsel can certainly correct me. To me, that was a major move, and I know this was discussed. I'm not blaming you by any means,
I know that was discussed in the council meetings about recycling, because there was a whole brouhaha when it first happened, with confusion and who to call and who's doing what. I felt like they moved that large, moving the grant that rightfully belonged to the civil city to another entity over which this body has very limited powers, without first bringing it to us to ask for our support of it, ask for our input, ask for our thoughts, is not insignificant, especially given that their sanitary district voted yesterday for a trash rate increase, which will come for us because of how many things they're being asked to do beyond what's in their mission. So I don't know when that grant is going to come, but I don't think that anyone, the administration, anyone should assume that this body is a rubber stamp, that we're just going to be okay with the movement of monies from one place to another, certainly outside of the civil city, without our approval. So I just would ask that in the future, those kinds of developments start here, not after it's already happened. And I may be incorrect about some of this. I just know it was moved from here to the sanitary district, and it was an announcement, not a request of this body.
And Madam Clerk,
Yes.
Madam
That's
Chair,
all right.
the grant budget normally comes in November after this budget here for Councilman Godwin. The grant budget comes normally in November after we pass this
Right.
budget.
So I don't understand how, so the monies that were moved were from last year?
Yeah.
I think they operate on different calendar than we
They
operate.
do.
Yes.
The grant budget normally comes later on in the year. However, we don't know now that this company is doing the recycling, if they are going to be funded through the grant budget or how they're going to be funded. You see what I'm saying? When we had recycling who was working for those guys who worked for the city, they got their monies from the out at Crown Point. Okay? But I don't know where the money's coming from now. I just know they didn't pick up my recycling, and I'm not happy.
Well, I recall, and please correct me, Chief of Staff, that it seems that the contract that the sanitary district has entered into with the public, I would imagine is contingent upon our transferring those grant dollars from here to them. Because if this body approved, prior to my arrival, approved the grant in November of 2019, and those dollars that entered into this fiscal year were moved without the permission of this council, I can only imagine that the contract, privity being between GSD and the Republic, is that it's contingent upon our, I suppose, approving something that would allow that to happen retroactively. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think this body ever permitted funds to be moved out of it.
No, I just know that normally toward later on in the year, the monies come from the Crown Point, from the
Lake County Solid Waste.
Lake County Solid Waste, right. And I have not seen or heard any of that this year. I just know that it's been changed and they're not doing a good job. I don't know what they're doing.
And so the people who were working in recycling,
I don't know where they are.
Were they under Public Works for a part of this year?
They were not under.
Okay, so the plan is, and I guess Chief of Staff can help me out there, is to restructure them under Public Works at some point. That has not, it has not been fully developed. So recycling, we work with recycling as far as some of the products we get together and go out on, some of the cleanups, but as far as, for instance, me just making decisions for recycling and it's been totally moved, that I have not been involved in.
So where was recycling, Chief of Staff, prior to the sanitary district entering into a contract with the public?
Or was it?
They had a department.
So where are they now?
The persons are still in that same area, and that's who Mrs. Barber is referring to. She's trying to be working with the state.
So are they going to be incorporated into
Public Works or some other department, or let go, or what's the plan?
As I understand it, when the recycling budget comes up in November, those individuals will still be in that budget. But that's the information that I have. I can certainly give you more.
Councilman Garland, from what I'm understanding, they are still picking up yard waste.
Okay.
They're not picking up recycling materials, but they are picking up yard waste.
Door to door.
Now, they're their own department, or who do they report to, I guess? It's like, where are they housed within the organization, within the city?
Where are they housed?
Yeah, where are they, what's the reporting structure?
They were,
Nah, the master.
they were out of the sanitary district. Their trucks were out of the sanitary
Okay.
district.
But that's,
Okay, at one point, and I
They
don't know
were
where they are
under you,
now.
right?
they still work
The
for,
public works?
they still work for Ms., help me out,
Matee.
Matee,
And
yes.
she's a direct report to
Right.
the mayor or yourself? Okay. So we'll take that up in November.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I'll take it up now,
Well-
because I want my recycling.
Well, I guess that's a good question, because we need to see if this is the administration's plan. I guess we would probably see it in this budget then, if they're looking to restructure, to put them on the public works. I guess we would actually see them in the 2021 budget then. Is that correct?
I don't know. The thing, and let me tell you, the thing that bothers me is when we make large changes like this, and no one talks to us about it, okay? And so we know absolutely nothing about what is happening with that. And so when my neighbors say to me, why haven't they picked up my recycling? I have no answer for them, because they haven't picked mine up either. So I don't know, but I think that I think it's poor communication on the part of the administration not to talk to us about those kinds of things, because people ask us what is happening, why is it happening, and we have no response. And so that, and I'm not, needless to say, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying that is what's happening. They don't talk to us about what's happening. We just get no feedback about what's going on.
I'll get some answers.
Thank you.
I think it's important to have those answers before we vote on this budget. Because if
Yes.
we vote on a budget that does not include these persons,
Where are
we
they going?
cannot retroactively, basically, because we will turn this into the state. It'll be a problem to try to retroactively go back and fix it, as it were. So if the plan is for them to be incorporated under Public Works, then that's where it should be now, before we vote on it. Hopefully maybe next month.
So that was my question. Where are they inside the 2021 budget that we're talking about currently?
Not in the budget I would present.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Thank
We'll find out.
Okay, so you want me to go to maintenance? Is the maintenance budget 100?
I'm sorry.
Can't you do maintenance?
Yeah, we can do maintenance.
Okay, so there are literally no changes in that maintenance budget. It remains the same.
Okay.
And that budget there is used for different, like the security services, building repairs, that's what, basically.
You said maintenance is building repairs?
Yeah, maintenance agreements, repairs to building, security, different things are paid from that budget. They're all on the 100. So they're usually professional service contract or maintenance agreement contracts.
So that's the same from last year then, no changes? Same from last year, no changes?
No change. Thank you.
You don't have human resources anymore, huh?
No, I don't have human resources.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So maintenance only had one budget?
That's human
Yes,
resources.
one budget. basic contracts.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, council members. My name is Margaret Lewis. I am the Human Resources Director. And I would like to present a proposal for our salary budget. Our salary budget did remain the same, the bottom line. But we did make a full-time position out of, a part-time position out of a full-time position, which was a benefit lead wellness coordinator. And we made that part-time. In doing that, we did increase some salaries. And the reason for the part-time position, taking the full-time to part-time, because of the ADP automation. That's supposed to be taken over like family medical leave, applicant tracking, and different sources like that. And one of the positions, the benefits coordinator, we would like to take it back to the benefits manager, because that person will be overseeing the automation for ADP for benefits. Any questions regarding the salary budget? As I mentioned, we will be staying the same bottom line. No questions? Okay, so as far as the operating budget, it will remain the same. The bottom line is remaining the same as well. Any questions?
Okay.
That's it?
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Do you have any extra income from other budgets?
Yes, I do myself and Gary Sanitary District.
What is your total from Gary Sanitary District?
I'm sorry.
What is your total from the Sanitary District?
Gary Sanitary District is about $9,000.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And, Madam Chair, the Human Resource Specialist, the title change here, it looked like the salary went down to half.
Right, that's the position that I said that we did.
That's the change.
Right, from full-time to part-time.
Got you. Thank you. Thanks, Madam.
Is that it?
I don't have any questions. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have attachments that I'm going to bring up to you all.
Commission for the women.
Thank you.
You're not doing bad on that. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
I didn't know that. Good evening, Madam Chair, and members of the council.
Good evening.
Before you, attached to cover is employee year-to-date attached. Here, I'm sorry, let me take this down.
Your name?
I'm sorry, my name is Tashisia George, Executive Director of the Gary Commission for Women, and we manage the Rainbow Arch Shelter. And just a quick overview for those that don't know, the Rainbow Arch Shelter is currently closed until the new year. We are pending some renovations, some very much needed renovations. Our bidding process is undergoing right now. It will close next Wednesday with the bidding opening, well, they'll be opening up bids on next Wednesday at the public works meeting. So we are very happy and excited that this process that we've been waiting for so long will be starting soon. And it will take about up to 120 days. So somewhere around January, we will be ready to reopen and start serving the citizens. So right now, we've just been referring our constituents that are in need to the other shelters in the area and providing resources and referral. We don't have very many shelters in our area right now. Our 2021 proposed operating salary budget for 2021, my salary did not change in the proposal, as well as travel and your temperature is normal. $750 in dues to the National Association of the Commission for Women for $750. The only change is the addition of a part-time custodian, part-time $14,526.72. That will be needed, especially with the women that will be transitioning in and out of the shelter. With the current conditions passed, we were cleaning the shelter and the women and children were cleaning the shelter. But right before we closed, the extra sanitation measures that were necessary, we need additional assistance. So once we reopen, that position will be necessary. So that's the only change. The bottom line increase to our budget is $14,526 instead of 7%. That's our change.
Madam Chair?
I didn't understand. Well, go ahead.
I'd just like to ask, what are some of the changes that you're looking for as the renovation to take place?
One, they're tearing out all the flooring. The floors are kind of outside the equipment. New cabinetry, all new appliances, stove, refrigerators. Those are some of the nice stuff we just got over the last year. We just received all new beds, new mattresses, toilets, closets, new closet space, HVAC, all of that, all of those things are going to be worked on. The heating and cooling, all of those things are going to be worked on. New carpets, new paint, patching, pretty much everything.
Okay.
That was very much needed. We had more residential flooring and things in the building, and when you have high turnover and people coming in every 30, 60, 45 days, that was not conducive to the type of transition that we had. So we're getting commercial flooring, commercial type things in the facility.
Okay.
So we have resistant mattresses, so we don't have to have those type of services all the time. So much needed things, we're ready for the change.
That's good to hear, yes.
Madam Chair?
Excited.
Madam Chair, thank you. Did you say you are closing or you are closed?
We are closed.
Was there any displacement of residents?
There was no displacement, so when the last woman transitioned out, so we naturally have a transgression change. Once they leave, they have so many days that they're there anyway, so once that last person left, we had a few other things, some other safety issues that came up. We just did not take anybody else in at that time. That was just the perfect time to just go ahead and shut the door. Expand.
Well, with that being said, are there alternative places that, right now, that people can go if they need your services?
Agencies that provide funding that will help them get housing or continuum of care. They provide down payment assistance. Some of them will pay their rent for a certain amount of time, so we make sure that we connect them with those type of services. Community Partners through Justice Corporation, we connect them with those services. Our domestic violence clients that need assistance, we make sure that we get them to those domestic violence shelters because there's still shelters in Hammond,
Okay. That's what I was really concerned about. Okay, thank you.
Any You know, and I just wanted to say that goes back to my previous statement about our not knowing when things happen. I had a couple of people who had called me and asked me, is the women's shelter closed? And I didn't know. Because no one told us, I don't think anybody on the council knew that the shelter was closed. No one bothered to tell us. And so in fact, I think I called the chief of staff to ask if it was closed because we didn't know. And so these are the kinds of things that bother me when we're not informed. Major things that are happening in the city and we have no information.
Well, one of the things, we didn't put it out in the open right away. We were still providing some of the services, so we were hoping to reopen soon. We were supposed to be
I understand that. I'm just saying that we are not kept in the loop.
We'll make
That's
sure
all.
when we have any changes and when we reopen, we will make sure to invite you to reopen.
We'd appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Just half the year has went by and we haven't known anything, haven't been in the loop on anything. Then just say what it is. That's it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments?
It's a difference when you're used to and then when it is happening now and you see it before your eyes. Stuff is going on and you're not aware of it. You got to read about it in the 411 or the Crusader or the Hannah Times.
Well, yeah, that's what happens. That's what has been
Citizens
happening.
call you and
You
tell
have to
you
read it in the
things.
paper. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Health Department.
Hello, Madam Chair, council members, Attorney Renzer, and Chief. My name is Veronica Collins. I'm for the Gary Health Department.
Would you repeat your name again?
Veronica Collins.
Okay.
So our bottom line number, never from 2020 to next year, the bottom number never changed. It's still the same.
I can.
However, we did reallocate funds to meet the department needs. It's the health services supervisor. We took it out of the payroll and we put it into contractual services. Also, we added a part-time front desk receptionist to assist with the calls that comes in on a daily basis.
Their bottom line changed?
Anybody have any questions or comments about the Health Department?
I do, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Couple of questions around permitting for restaurants during COVID. I know I did get a complaint from a restaurant owner in my district in terms of the times that I guess would be your inspectors were available to come to her establishment, and they seem to have had a very defined period. And so one of the things that would be wanting to know is how much flexibility there is in terms of working with business owners, especially during this COVID season, people have irregular hours, to not just be limited between, say, 9 and 5, when people can come and get their kitchens inspected to make sure they're up to code. And she also had a lot of issues with the receptionist desk. She didn't find it the most friendly encounter. It was very dismissive. The customer service is something an ongoing challenge that we face in government, but the constituents are our customers. And so I asked, what kind of things we can do to help the customer service, but also to be flexible in terms of working with restaurants and other businesses that require your services.
Well, the thing with inspectors, they are union, so with the time frame that's permitted, that's the only time frame that we have. I know exactly who you're speaking with, so we hear everybody's situation. I don't believe she had a situation with the front desk. I think it was with the health inspector that she stated.
Both. I think she went up to the actual location, and it was very
Yeah, but I spoke with her,
Okay,
and
good.
we rectified the situation, so.
I don't know if she's the only one, that's the only reason I mentioned
Okay.
it, because
Oh,
We maintain our system. Good afternoon, Dr. Long, Commissioner of the City of Gary. So one of the things with the inspection, why they're given a window of time, because you want to kind of make the inspection unexpected. So they're not preparing for inspection. But there also is the ability to have an expedited inspection, which is for an extra charge, and that's how we worked it out in that incident. In that case. Also, they are union workers, and so therefore, it has to be within the range of their work hours. Otherwise, it's something union, and you have to give comp time, overtime, that sort of thing. So that's how that's addressed. Secondarily, at the front desk, generally, up until now, we had the front desk up until COVID time, we either had volunteers coming from AARP, or we also have asked voluntarily other people who work in the health department to come and work front desk at a particular time. So we didn't have a permanent front desk person who we could train, particularly in that aspect of how to do that job. So that in this budget now, we have placed somebody permanently. Look, we're on the shoestring budget like everybody is, so, you know, primary river, you know, all of us are trying to do our best. But we've been able to put somebody in that position specifically to address those issues and customer service in the manner in which we want to see it happen.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Dr. Walker?
Yes.
Does all your staff live in the city of Gary?
Does all my staff live in the city of Gary? No, I'm sure there's some people that don't live in the city of Gary. We've had several people who were grandfathered in years ago who have been on staff. Most of the people that work in the health department have been there 10 to 20 years. So under last administration, when that became an issue, there were several people who were grandfathered in, but they've been working there for 10 or 20 years. Period of time.
Okay, well, I'm gonna cut to the chase. You're a new person that came with you. Is that Ms. Collins? Does she live in the city of Gary?
She does not. However, I want to make sure that you know that she's not new. That Ms. Collins has worked there for, I want to say 17, I'm almost going to be 20 years. She's been at the health department for 17 years, and so she just moved into a different position at the health department.
Dr. Walker?
Yes.
I just want to take the time and thank you for the dashboard that you and Mr. Martin Brown over at the Gary Sanitary District put together. Can you just speak for a moment, even though it's not related to the budget, could you just speak for a moment about COVID and where we stand in the city right now?
So first of all, let me give all the credit to Mr. Brown on that. He works really hard on COVID issues. He's a whiz with programming, he's a whiz with, he likes to do epidemiological number of things, and so he's been a great service to me in the city of Gary. Where we are in the city of Gary, we've been really fortunate of where I predicted we could possibly get to in the summer months, because that's when people are most outside. We did get a mask mandate, and people have been socially distancing. And I think we've done, as citizens of Gary, I think we've done a very good job. With the caveat that now that fall is coming, you're going to see our numbers are pretty low. As a matter of fact, I dare to say we might be the best in the state right at this moment, because our last few days have been pretty low. We've seen max of up to 30 new cases a day. Right now, we're seeing highs. I think the last high I saw was 6 and lows of 2. But what's going to happen is, as fall comes in, as more schools try to do in-person school, as more people are coming inside, as it gets colder, we're going to see those numbers rise. Unfortunately, people are starting to feel like COVID is going away because they're not hearing about it as much. That's kind of the national direction that we're hearing. And, you know, I think my story is well documented, so it's a really serious issue. And it's unfortunate that people are going to have to experience some of the things I've experienced, because those numbers are going to go up. Morbidities are going to go up. Mortality is going to go up. And we're going to see those higher numbers just because it's wintertime. And so I want to get that message out, because I want to prepare us, because I think that we're kind of drifting away and feeling like COVID is not a thing anymore. I'm really heartened to see these dividers between the council members. I was really impressed with that, because I hadn't seen that previously.
Thank you.
I wish that was something that we could have when people try to do in-person. I know the school is doing it, right, between the desks. That would be something that would be great. I know the expenses too of plexiglass too, so I know that most of the schools can't afford to do that. But those are the type of steps that we need to take in order to keep our students, particularly our kids in schools.
So you anticipate, from what I heard today, you know, they're saying that maybe by December, I guess it's 200,000 right now, deaths, and they're saying by December that number may double. Do you anticipate the same thing for Gary, Indiana?
Well, what we're seeing is, and one of the biggest things we look at is Great Britain, and they're seeing a great uptick right now, and what happens in other countries is going to happen here. Like I said, I'm happy with our mask mandate. My concern is as people want to have more events, whether it be high school sporting events or whether it be concerts, whatever, and even if they're not sanctioned, you start to see parties and so forth. My fear is that we're going to see an increase. I think that we might be able to do a little better than we did in March and April just because we do have some protocols, but I do anticipate a large increase. Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Dr. Walker, we hear a lot about wearing the mask. What is the protocol as far as disposing of masks, washing masks? We don't hear about how we should, the safety part of just being clean with the mask also. So can you? Thank you.
So the first thing, for disposable masks, they are not biohazard. They can go in the garbage. This is a virus that, you know, I know what the early reports are. We just didn't know. We didn't know how long things lived on surfaces. But it pretty much seems to behave like most respiratory viruses. So those masks can go in the garbage.
How often should you change those masks, those disposable masks?
Wow, so we tend to wear those a lot longer than we should. You probably can get 8 hours out of a mask, but you typically tell people 4 hours for a mask. But multiple days of a mask, if you've had it on all day, probably not going to work out for you. You're supposed to wash your mask in warm water. Then if you have a filtration mask, you should take the filtration membranes out before you wash the mask, and it should be in warm water.
Did I miss something? Did we say anything about spraying for mosquitoes? Did I miss that?
No, we haven't.
Okay, so that would be in our budget. We did spray this year.
You have sprayed already?
Yes. We're not, and as it relates to COVID, I know have a question related to COVID. As it relates to COVID, we don't think that there's a mosquito spread of COVID. I did, the reason, so we are limited in the amount of people, that was a coincidence, right? Mosquitoes.
Right.
We are limited, so our environmental agents, what we call our food inspectors, also the people who have to go out and spray, and they have to spray at night. The reason why you probably didn't know somebody came is it's hard to give warning because the wind, it has to be a certain wind speed, wind vector, moisture, more things that I just really understand. I've been educated with them, but it's really complicated. So it's a very small window. We've been asked to try and put it on the city website, but we know we're going to spray a certain district. We try our best. That's hard to do. Then you have to coordinate with IT, get it on the website, inform people it's there, and then you have to take it right back down, you can go somewhere else. So that's probably why you didn't know, but we've covered the entire city at least once. So what we try to do is, we try to do a spray to knock down the number, and we try to save enough supply. And that's what we try to save in our budget, so in case we have a large outbreak, and particularly we're looking at West Nile, the thing we're most worried about. So if we had an outbreak, we could blanket the whole city at one time, and so we're trying to keep that in reserve. It's pretty expensive, but I think that's pretty important.
What line item is that? I want to increase that.
I'm going to pass that back over to Veronica because she does a really good job. Okay.
One other question, will you be providing the flu shot at the health department?
So we are providing a flu shot with the health department, A, and B, in coordination with Edgewater, CVS, Anthem, Medicaid Insurance, and Walker Medical. We are going to have a drive. We've got a series of, we've tried to get 6, and I think Anthem finally approved 3 so far. We're going to have drive-through flu shots too. So that's going to come out. The first one I want to tell you is October 10th, but I will announce it again. So that way we can be COVID safe and be as efficient as possible. So we'll get a drive-through flu shot. And I also will, and I have not talked to Ms. Goldman, but I also will try to open that up for all the city employees too. And I will be able to give you a registration website from Anthem for that too, as you don't have that with me currently.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Walker and his team for rapidly responding to a very novel
coronavirus and a novel public health situation in the city. I didn't always agree, and you know, about a particular issue, but overall, I think that they have done a fantastic job in terms of keeping the public aware, providing resources, obviously with very limited resources, both from the state and the federal government, and very little direction. So I wanted to publicly thank Dr. Walker and the health department for your efforts.
So I greatly appreciate that. And what I always say is, look, grew up on Fifth and Tab, and the point is that it affects my family, it affects my friends, and so we want to give the best we can possibly give, because this is where we reside and this is where we love.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Walker.
Any other questions?
Are there any other questions or comments for the health department? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Police Commission.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Andrew Brown. I'm the administrator for the Gary Police and Service Commission. As far as my budget is concerned, our bottom line is going to stay the same. We do need a new copier, so I would like to rearrange some funds so that we can purchase a copier company.
Is that in your budget?
Yes.
Okay.
We have $5,000 in leases, and I want to move that down to machinery and equipment. And then we have $71,109 in our professional services. I want to increase $5,000 from that, which will be $66,109, and then add that also to machinery and equipment. That way I'll have $10,000 in machinery and equipment, and hopefully we should get a new copy.
Anyone have any questions for the Police Commission?
What do you say?
No questions? No comments? Okay. Thank you.
Did you say she had a temperature?
I think that's it for this evening. So if there's no other comments or questions.
I actually wanted to have a quick couple comments.
Pardon?
Just a couple comments. Really
Okay.
quick. I wanted to just reiterate our desire to have the GSD payments included on the budget document, and if it could be revised accordingly. Secondly, on the salary budgets, we get the 2020 comparison, but we don't have that for the operation, so it's really hard to understand what is actually changing and to what extent. And I would also just ask the administration, and I should have done this a couple weeks ago, to give us a list of all personnel who are not in compliance with the resignation agreement. Because this is our opportunity to ensure that we aren't approving positions that are not in compliance with our very own ordinance. I know there's exceptions for folks who were hired prior to, I think, November or so of 2016. But in any event, I think that would be helpful to us, and look forward to getting the answers to specific questions that were raised tonight as it relates to payment from the GSD for the non-existing special administrator role for fiscal year 2020 and going forward until further notice. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
One quick question, I guess it's a two-part question. How much have we received in tax collection thus far as the city? What did we receive in June, I will ask?
The amount of taxes that we received in June was about 4.2% higher than last year. I don't have it right in front of me, Councilman, I don't want to.
Okay.
But you did send us.
Yes, I did.
I can forward it.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you, appreciate you. That's good to hear.
You what?
Yeah.
And surprised.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll see you in November for mine.
All right, thank you very much, that's it. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah, I used to-
Yeah.